Welcome to the sideboard here at the Cincinnati Standard Open. I'm Glenn Jones. I'm here with deck designer, brewmaster, and beardmaster, Caleb Durward.
Beardmaster extraordinaire.
Yep. You're playing a deck that has really felt the impact of Gatecrash here.
Right, two Godless Shrines.
Junk Reanimator with 2 Godless Shrines and nothing else.
Nothing else, right.
Total airball. So
the deck does improve in the metagame, I think, with the
because
inclusion
of the decks that became
right,
better.
when people become more aggro.
Sure. Something people often overlook when trying to pick their deck. You know, they think about how to update what they were currently playing rather than how something they used to play.
How the deck is positioned in the metagame will also change, yeah.
All right, so you went back to this Junk Reanimator ramp style deck. Let's start with that. Why did you think it would be a good choice this weekend?
This deck can play Sweet 5-drop on turn 3 very consistently, either Thragtusk or Garruk Primal Hunter.
Okay.
And then playing green-white gives you a lot of sweet sideboard options for the aggro decks, like Rock's Faithmender, Tristani, and so that's pretty sweet as well. And then if people are trying to play control decks to beat all of the aggro decks, like this deck has almost a buy against control because of its game plan. So that's
Garruk
awesome.
Primal Hunter being a big part of that game.
Right. And even a turn 3 Garruk against aggro isn't bad. Like, it's still making a beast token that's as large as any of their creatures. And then, like, you can generally play an Angel of Serenity on either turn 4 or 5.
Sure.
Anyway, so that's the main game plan, is getting a quick Angel of Serenity.
A C-Snit is still a C-Snit. 5-mana 3/3. You get a 3/3. All right, well, we'll move on. So you have your Unburial Rites package here.
Right. I tested Grizzly Salvage in the deck, and I actually thought it was going to be better than Mulch at first, but then in testing, Mulch was helping me hit my land drops. It was doing stuff like finding me Gavany Township while binning Lingering Souls. And it was just an excellent card, whereas Grizzly Salvage was not in this deck. Grizzly Salvage made me like have an early black mana to be effective, whereas Mulch just needed green, so it's much more castable on turn 2. Whereas Mulch finds me the black mana, whereas Grizzly Salvage requires it, so it's just a much less awkward card.
Yeah, they're a lot more different than they seem. Plus, obviously, post-board, sometimes, you know, you're boarding out maybe your graveyard against hate or whatever.
Right.
The mulches are still going to help you curve up to these Angel of Serenities, whereas the Salvages are a little less effective.
Board down to like 1 or 2 Mulch is still fine.
Yeah.
And against those types of strategies, I'll usually leave in some Lingering Souls, so I can still get value off of it that way. That's the nice thing about the Mulch, is even if I don't like hit an Unburial Rites plus Angel of Serenity, Nutness, I'm still hitting like Lingering Souls. I'm still finding a Thragtusk that I can Unburial Rites back later. I'm still like milling a pile of Farseats that I don't want to draw. Like,
sure, you're just generating value.
Right, yeah. It prevents you from milling. The only card in this deck that I don't want to hit off of Mulch is like Garruk Primal Hunter.
Fair enough.
Right.
Well, you mentioned when you sat down that you really liked your sideboard, which you've got down here.
Sideboard is excellent.
So let's go through what makes the sideboard so excellent. I guess we'll start with the Nevermores, as it's a card that obviously people didn't, when they first saw it, I imagine, expect this to be a card people would sideboard frequently, but it's become more and more a kind of expected thing in Standard.
Right. Aggro decks will sideboard in Nevermores and name Supreme Verdict against control decks. I board in Nevermores and just use it to become a better control deck. I name Sphinx's Revelation. And then, since I'm going up to 4 Garruk Primal Hunters, I'm very consistently drawing through my deck, and my opponent doesn't. They just flood out and die. It's very consistent. Very hard to lose a control matchup post-board.
It's almost like you have Sphinx's Revelation and they don't.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So obviously you have the 4th Garruk, which you mentioned there, and Staff of Nin, which I guess functions almost like his 5th.
Right. Staff of Nin is a draw engine against the control decks. It's also excellent against Lingering Souls. So against Esper control, you're not only like applying pressure and drawing a pile of cards with the Staff of Nin, but you're also like nuking the efficiency of their deck, because they're designed to use Lingering Souls as blockers, which this deck is. Though my Lingering Souls are better because I have Gavany Township.
Also true. You've got Craterhoof Behemoth, which I imagine just allows you to become sort of a faster deck. You can actually put a clock on.
Right. I board in Craterhoof when I expect to be able to hardcast it. I don't want to main deck it, because in a very aggressive metagame, like if I don't have the reanimation part of it, I'm not actually going to be able to cast it against an aggro deck. It's just going to sit in my hand and then I'll die. Meanwhile, if I get past turn 5 or whatever, I'm playing an Angel of Serenity, and that should just win the game anyway. I don't actually need Craterhoof against those decks. Craterhoof is against the other graveyard-based decks and against control.
Sure. Speaking of the aggro decks, you've got a lot of cards for them. 2 Tristani, 2 Rock's Faithmender, an additional ultimate price, and Curse of Death's Hold, which I imagine it sees play against some, but not all.
Right, exactly.
So you have the split on Tristani and Rock's Faithmender. What made you decide to go with 2 and 2 rather than 3 and 1, or one way or the other, or even 4?
They're better in different situations. I generally prefer a Rock's Faithmender if my opponent's like playing a Hellrider, but I prefer a Tristani if I have like a token in play, and they work really well together as well. Like,
That's true.
Tristani is a source of life gain for the Faith Menders.
And 2 Tristani are obviously not a combo.
Not a combo, right. So if I could run 4 Tristani and like layer their effects and stuff, I might have 4 Tristani in my board. But as is, the split is better.
Okay, fair enough. And last but not least, you've got a little bit of an eye for the graveyard down there. You got Deathrite Shamans and Purify the Grave.
Right. Purify might be a mistake. Last night I was thinking what would be a good anti-graveyard card for the Reanimator Mirror, and Deathrite Shaman. I was flipping through my buddy's card collection because I don't really own cards, and I came upon Deathrite Shaman and I was like, oh, this is perfect. It actually won me a match against the black-white sort of combo aggro deck that runs like Gravecrawler and Geralf's Messenger. It let me exile a bunch of things with Undying triggers on the stack. It's been very good for me today. So I would go up to 3 Deathrites if I was gonna.
I'm actually a little curious about the Deathrite Shamans. Is there a matchup you bring them in where you're not like explicitly looking for graveyard hate, where it's just sort of a threat that you can land early or anything like that? Okay.
The deck is too value filled to run like weird, wonky like pressure cards like that. The only one in the main deck is Loxodon Smiter. Like this is just to.
That's exactly the kind of thing I was thinking.
Right, like turn 2 Smiter, and then they have to react to that, and that allows you to resolve Garruk Primal Hunter, and etc. Yeah.
All right.
So one more thing I wanted to mention: I'm running Ultimate Price over Abrupt Decay. A lot of people were suggesting Abrupt Decay as an answer to Boros Reckoner, but Ultimate Price was more of a big deal because Thundermaw Hellkite and Hellrider are much stronger against this deck than Boros Reckoner.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. Right. I mean, you obviously have a guy who can sort of outclass the Reckoner. In the
just
Smiter,
very
plus
quickly.
like you're curving up the Thragtusk and the Angels. Like,
turn 3 Thragtusk, like hopefully trade or just block a bit,
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
All right, well, that about sums up. I'm going to go ahead and let you get back to the tournament. Thanks for joining us, Caleb.
Thank you, Glenn.